How is it that great producers like Skrillex, Chris Lake, Fred Again, and James Hype all seem to hit the nail on the head every single time they release a track, seemingly staying at the top and having even their most recent releases littered in every DJ set at every festival, as well as dominate the Spotify and Beatport charts? Is it luck? Are they all born with this special gift that none of us seem to have? Now, I do have an answer for this, and I'll get to that in a second, but first I want to take a look at why I started asking these questions in the first place. And it all started when I read this Twitter post by Chris Lake back in 2022. In the post, Chris talks about how his track Turn Off the Lights had just hit 100 million streams on Spotify, and he goes on to say that the remix by the mysterious artist Cages, that the original track was released with, was actually Chris Lake himself all along, just under a different alias. And not only that, but the Cages remix is actually the true original version of the song. But he didn't think it was right to release it as himself, so he made the version that we know as the original now and put that out. Now, I can't play either of these tracks due to copyright, however, I do encourage you to go listen to them after this video, because the Cages remix, the actual original version, in itself is a great track. But it wasn't the right track for the time, and Chris recognised this.
My career's gone in ebbs and flows, and just a few years ago, no one could give a fuck about my music. No one could give a fuck. The only thing that I changed was my approach. I became more connected with what I was doing. I felt it more. Other people started feeling it and created interest in my music.
Turn Off the Lights ended up being his biggest ever track, and it makes sense why he didn't go with the Cages remix. It's just because it wasn't unique enough. It wouldn't have set him apart like the now original, much more popular version has done. So what are all these great producers actually doing? Well, they're looking at their tracks through a wider lens. When they've made a good track, they don't just tick it off and then move on to the next one. They sit with it for a bit. They think about what is the main purpose of this track, and does it need to be taken in a different direction? Even though the version that they have in front of them may be a great track in itself, is it enough? Or do they need to explore a different path? Another great example of this is with Fred Again's latest track, Leave Me Alone. In a recent Instagram post, Fred talks about how he got lost in overproducing the track, going really heavily into getting the mix perfect, and ultimately lost all of the rawness and emotion that made him initially fall in love with his idea in the first place. So in a way, it's almost the opposite outcome to what Chris Lake had discovered. The version that Fred had in the first place was the right version. However, Fred wouldn't have come to that conclusion if he hadn't have spent that time taking it in that new direction. It's all about being objective with your music and looking at what's in the best interest for the track itself. Now obviously this is no easy feat, and I think you do have to strike some balance between overproducing and underproducing a track, as you'll either end up A, never releasing anything because it's never perfect enough, or B, releasing mediocre music which isn't a true representation of what you're capable of. Now at the start of this video, I said this: is it luck? Are they all born with this special gift that none of us seem to have? And I honestly think the answer is no. I think it's a product of the amount of time and care that they put into writing their music. On the surface, it looks like they're all cranking out these great tracks like it's nothing, but you only have to go digging a little bit to see the monumental amount of work that they each put in to figuring out whether the track is right or not. Seriously, think about the amount of IDs that you hear Skrillex play in his sets versus the amount that are actually released in the end. Even the ones that do end up getting released usually sound slightly differently in some parts to what we might have heard on those mixes, and it's because he's refining what the overall track is doing and looking at the bigger picture. So what's the main takeaway here? I think that all of these great producers that we look up to are each really good at being able to look at their tracks with a wider lens and see kind of what's working, what isn't, and can it be better? And how can you get better at this? Well, just make as much music as you possibly can. The more ideas that you make and the more time that you spend, the higher the chance of you making something great, and the better you'll become at recognising what is great and what isn't. And as this bloke said, the harder I work, the luckier I get. So hopefully you got something useful from this video. make sure to go check out some of my others where I go over different areas of production in dance music. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.